Managing Director and founder of Cornerstone Wealth, Gavin Martin, is joining me today. Gavin, the morning after the night before the federal budget handed down last night, what's your verdict?
Good morning, Tracey. Great to be with you. Yeah, if you look at either families or businesses or even government, one of the simple rules is to spend less than you earn. And as a government, we're not doing that again this year. A lot of it is to do with the global financial crisis and having to put some stimulus in there. But I think we probably could have done a little bit more to rein in our spending to do two things. One is to reduce the pressure on inflation. Inflation is going to be a big challenge for families into the future. And the other is to pay down the debt, to try and firstly to avoid going into further debt. So would have liked to have seen a little bit more spending cuts, but when it comes to families, they are taking a fair bit of a hit moving forward.
All right, well, let's look at the good points then. Families, as you say, they're taking a hit. I mean, we've seen inflation and exactly what that means. We also see that some of the family payments, they're not going to be adjusted to reflect inflation. So what's the good stuff out of this budget? Is there any? Well,
there are a few smart initiatives, I believe. One of the ones is the Fringe Benefits tax on cars. That used to be linked to, or one of the methods you could calculate the fringe benefit is through the amount of kilometres you actually drive. And this encouraged people to just go and drive lots of kilometres to try and get their kilometres up so that they would get a greater deduction, which didn't make sense from, I guess, an environmental perspective, but also it's a bit of a waste, I think. So they've removed that whole incentive to do more kilometres and replaced it with a $5,000 tax deduction for business when they purchase a vehicle. So I think that was a smart initiative and something that was a long time overdue. So that was one thing that I thought was actually quite smart. In terms of education and training, there's been a big boost to that, and with employment at next to full employment, that means that it's getting really tough for employers to get good people to work. With that in mind, and the pressure that also puts on inflation, they've put a lot of money into training and getting people back into the workforce. And keeping people, I guess, at the other end, people thinking about leaving the workforce and retiring, trying to give incentives for them to stay in the workforce as well. So I think that's definitely the big positive out of the budget.
It really was the catch cry of the entire budget, wasn't it, from welfare to work?
Yeah, exactly. They were talking it up prior to the budget last night, and I guess that's one facet of it, is getting welfare to work. The other side of it is the training, and they've focused on that a lot. One of the interesting things is they're trying to get not only the government to support training, but they're trying to get industry to put in 50% of the spend on training to assist them, because I guess in the whole two-speed economy that we're talking about, so the mining and mining services industry, they're actually, they I guess should actually foot a fair bit of the training bill, and they shouldn't be getting too many handouts from government to train their people to do their work to make the money for them.
Are there some wins for industry here? I know that some of the industry groups have said that they feel like they've missed out in some respects.
Yeah, I've heard a mixed comment on industry, and I guess that each industry reflects it on the budget in their own light. But I guess the training one is a big one. The thing that will probably affect industry a little bit more is the big thing that's been left out, which is the carbon tax. It actually hasn't been included in the budget, and so there'll probably be a revision to the budget if that legislation goes ahead. But I think that's probably a bigger piece of the puzzle from an industry perspective.
Well, certainly that's what the opposition is saying, that nothing can be really taken as gospel in this budget because of the so-called black hole with the carbon tax. It's too early to announce that yet because you don't know what impact it's going to have. But is it fair to say, Gavin, that if things don't go well in the mining industry, then this is all going to fall apart?
Yeah, definitely. They've predicted that the budget will come back to the surplus in 2013, and it's very much dependent on the mining boom. Reliance, if that it doesn't continue, if China sneezes, we'll catch a cold. It used to be that the US, when they sneezed, we'd catch a cold. But now I think being so reliant on the resources that we export, if China somehow slows down, and very well could, then it's going to put a big hole in the budget, and we might not get back to surplus at that time.
Yes, I think gone are the days where the US controlled the economy. Now it really is China, isn't it? People are seeing that more and more.
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of inflation, they used to export deflation so that they were continually providing cheaper and cheaper goods around the world, and so that it was actually keeping prices down. Now they're at the point in time where they're starting to export inflation, so the prices that they're charging are actually going up. So that puts pressure on global economies as well.
All right, now pressure on the economy, pressure on families. One way that that's seen obviously is interest rates. What do you see for interest rates in the near future in the light of the budget announced last night?
Yeah, the Reserve Bank has already flagged that interest rates will rise into the future. You don't necessarily know how much, but people have been talking, or a number of economists have been talking about 2 interest rate rises, so 0.25%, or 2 of those. From the average person who's got the average mortgage, which I think is now $300,000, that's $60 a month. So each 0.25% or 25 basis point increase, that's $60 a month that they need to come up with. So I guess it's a key message for people that have got mortgages and that aren't involved in the mining sector, as in their incomes are going up because they're involved in that sector. Those that aren't in the sector need to really think about working out how they can either increase their income or cut back on expenditure to factor in those future rises.
It's tough to cut back on expenditure, though, when the cost of living is so obviously rising. I mean, healthcare was something else that was addressed in this budget too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of the stats on the healthcare, but they have maintained that the rebate, I guess, for private health insurance, and still the carrot and the stick method of encouraging people that are earning over 100 and I think it's 150. It used to be 140. I think it's gone up now, $140,000 as a family, to make sure that they do have private health insurance.
All right, some interesting things coming out of last night's federal budget. Of course, we've still got the reply to the budget to come a little later in the week. It's going to be an interesting few months ahead, I think, Gavin, as all this begins to come into play.
Yes, it's definitely going to. And one of the things that we should factor in is that each year there's budget announcements, but as we've seen with last year's budgets, much of what was announced hasn't actually been implemented. I guess one of the things that's easy about some of the strategies that they've implemented with not indexing up the family tax benefits, that they're easy to do. It's easier to get through the parliament not increasing them, whereas to actually put forward new initiatives or tax reform, it's a lot more difficult, and a lot more difficult when they are relying on, the Greens and independents to actually get it through. So I guess it's an easier way for them to get the budget approved.
That's a fair point, given it's going to be a completely different ballgame come July 1.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
All right, Gavin, thanks for your time on expanding and explaining the budget this morning.
Great to be with you, Tracey. Thank you.